All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. I'm back after vacation, spending time with the family. Went to a Yankees game last night. I'm glad to be back with you, Drew, and we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about NBA free agency and updated outrights after that. We'll talk a little Wimbledon, Euro 2024, Copa America, and then we'll close out with some chat about the NFC West and ways to bet into those teams in that division. But how are you, man? What's been news?
Did you see the Tour de France today? Oh my goodness gracious. Mark Cavendish wins his 35th stage, breaks Eddie Merckx's record. I did not see that coming. I literally had a long conversation with the wife yesterday over coffee, watching the tour. Like, you think Cavendish really what? This is like sad. Like, you think he really has a chance? Does he think he has a chance? The sprinters are so much better. The teams are so much stronger. He did it, man. And it was awesome to see. This comes on the heels of a stage 4 that was a thriller for Tadej Pogačar. He really dropped the hammer on Vingegaard and the rest of the GC hopefuls. The Tour de France has just had 2 pretty thrilling days. And this is coming on the heels of Bingham, the Eritrean. I don't want to mispronounce his name, but Bingham Gamai, I believe. Just a spectacular win in stage 3. So the Tour de France is having a moment right now. And if you're kind of mired in, other European sports like Wimbledon, which has been a bust for me so far, except for Coco Gauff, who's doing well. The Tour de France is really making up the, kind of vacuum of sports that, typically hits us this time of year.
Okay. Well, looking forward to talking about Le Tour at some point, but been a bit distracted lately, Drew, by the happenings of NBA free agency. So let's start there, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this on the show or really even privately either. So I guess where are you right now in terms of any opposition to the market, any big takeaways that you're against, I guess, consensus, be it through the market or just kind of public convention?
Well, the macro thoughts are really like the big kind of question was, is anyone going to truly narrow the gap with the Celtics in terms of roster construction? And the answer has been Oklahoma City. Outside of that, everybody's moves, the Sixers narrowed the gap a little. The Paul George move is nice. The Knicks, okay, all right, fine. The Mikal Bridges, like that price that they paid for Mikal Bridges is really aging like spoiled milk for me. But the East is now, kind of a clear tier 2, in my opinion, of Sixers and Knicks, and then Bucks in the next tier, at the top of the next tier, but still miles away from the quality in terms of roster that the Celtics have. So nothing changes, in my opinion, about Celtics being able to repeat in the East. And then in the West, Oklahoma City made a nice move bringing in Alex Caruso. I thought kind of like a little bit of we have so many riches, like what do we spend them on? Okay, let's go get Hartenstein. Like that kind of was like a little bit of a luxury spend for them, I felt like. But they pretty clearly look the class in the West to me. And then everybody else in the West has just taken a huge step backwards. Some of the moves, some of the stuff that's been perceived as good by the market in the West, I'm just scratching my head like, we had a huge imbalance of conferences last year as we started the playoffs. The East was weak. The West was monstrous. And now everybody who I kind of had huge respect for in the West is taking either little chips here and there, or big kind of downgrades in specific areas where they were already a little bit questions swirling for me. Like the Dallas defense, is the Dallas defense going to be markedly better than last year? No way. Like now they have more problems on the floor in the absence of Derrick Jones Jr. bringing Klay in, and losing KCP for the Nuggets is going to hurt. I have no idea how they're going to backfill there. That was such a strong starting 5. I look at them, losing slow-mo for the Timberwolves is going to hurt. And I don't really like what they're doing there in terms of trying to address talent.
Joe Ingles?
No disrespect to Joe Ingles, but if he couldn't get on the floor for the Magic, who desperately needed shooting, I'm not sure he's getting on the floor for the Timberwolves. So we'll see. The Suns look like a mess. The Clippers, huge step backwards. The Lakers, I guess they keep LeBron. Congratulations to them. They're going to have something to write stories about and get people's attention in LA for the next 2 years. But the West looks weaker overall to me. except for Oklahoma City Thunder. And I'm ready to fast forward to the finals and see if the Celtics and the Thunder, the Thunder are a match for the Celtics, honestly.
Wow. Okay, I like it. I think the big thing that people need to always keep in mind coming out of free agency is that you cannot look at these teams as finished in their current states, and you always have to be aware of who still has assets. And that's why, to me, Philadelphia and Oklahoma City are both very compelling still, because like Oklahoma City still have 1,000,000 picks, and now they have, with what they've done with Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins and Hartenstein. I'd be surprised if they traded Hartenstein, but they could do that after December 15, January 15, whatever his date is that he can be traded. Like, they have all their picks and all these tradable salaries that, if they need a 4 who can shoot, which I kind of think they need, because right now they're a weird team where they don't really have anyone who's in between 6'7" and 6'11". Like, everyone is like 6'6" or shorter, or Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein, who I think are, in terms of guys who I think are in their top 7. So they still have stuff they can do. Philly have these like Clippers picks in 28 and 29. Like, they're not going to be making those picks, I don't think. I think those picks are going to be out the door to help Joel Embiid in his prime. And so I think the Sixers, they still have moves to make. They can still do creative stuff in terms of like signing guys to larger salaries than you'd expect, just to give them a more favorable salary slot in terms of being moved and attaching picks. So that is something that I think always has to be kept in mind, as opposed to teams like, the Bucks are just screwed. Like, they can't do anything. Like, this is kind of what their team is. They're just so asset deficient. But in terms of what teams have actually done so far, my big 2 things would be, one, I think the Sixers are a step above the Knicks, and more so than the market is implying, because one, I just think that the top end talent in terms of creating a ceiling and upside is just better on the Sixers. And then 2, I'm not sure the Knicks really got better, because I'm not sure on this specific team.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I want Mikal Bridges over Isaiah Hartenstein. And if you look at like a lot of the all-in-one advanced stats are better for Hartenstein than Mikal Bridges. And look, some of that, Mikhail's going to be better, and he's going to look better on this Knicks team than he did on the Nets when he was miscast as the number 1 guy. But with this Knicks team, like Mikal Bridges, he's going to come in and he's going to take minutes from Dante DiVincenzo, from Josh Hart, from Miles McBride, who's not amazing but is still solid, as opposed to Hartenstein, who's now gone. And now they're talking about like trading for Nick Richards and being dependent on Mitchell Robinson, who's never healthy. So I don't know. I think the Knicks, I was talking about this with a friend last night, where I think the Knicks are more likely than the Sixers to make it to the conference finals, because they have a crazy high floor, because they're so deep and their talent is so evenly spread, where they could lose anyone on the team outside of Jalen Brunson and still be potentially a conference finals team. Whereas the Sixers, they're extremely high variance. If any of their top 3 guys go down, they're screwed in terms of winning the title. But I think the Sixers are more likely to win the title than the Knicks, just because they have that high-end upside. Do you think that's fair?
I 100% agree with that. And yeah, I mean, price aside, the Mikal Bridges fit questions are still swirling for me. And if you were going to try to, kind of really chips in the pot, like, I would have used Julius Randle as a trade asset, or tried to bring in a little bit more versatile size, as opposed to trading away all your future to rebuild the Nova Knicks, which is okay. All right, I guess it's a fun story. Okay, but no, the idea of getting involved financially with the Sixers and betting on Joel Embiid's knees being healthy in April, May, and June of next year, not in my appetite of risk.
No, I mean, at current price, I'm not there either. I was able to get a fair bit of Sixers at 16-1 to win the title. So right now they are my horse, for better or worse, hoping that this is the year that Joel makes it through. The thing about Joel is that he always plays in the playoff games for the most part. It's just that he's a shell of himself because of physical ailments. Now, I do think it's a little bit overblown, because like 2 of the years where he was hurt in the playoffs, he fractured his orbital bone, which I don't think is really that repeatable, even though he did happen to repeat it. So, but the last few years has been the knees, which are the concern. But if he is able to stay healthy, I think people really just underrate how incredible Paul George is.
Sure.
Paul George was, I think he was like 8th in the league in EPM. He is 10th in Darko. Like he is, I think he is and Maxi will get better and Maxi may overtake him this year. But like, I think people talking about Paul George coming in as the 3rd best player on the team. Paul George is the 2nd best player on the team for mine right now. And I think that he is a little bit underrated still by the masses. The other thing that I wanted to get out there is I think that people are a little too cool on the Mavs. And I get it. I get that Klay Thompson is not a perfect fit because you put him next to Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, and then you have 3 guys, none of whom are, really super positive defenders on the perimeter. And so that hurts a little bit. But I just think that look at this team that finished the season playing incredibly well over the last 20 games. They went 8-3 against the fully healthy OKC and Minnesota teams without home court in those series. And then what they've effectively done is they've traded out, they've gotten rid of Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Derek Jones Jr., and they've added in their place Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, and Quentin Grimes, who I really like. Like, why is Quentin Grimes isn't just a throw-in? Quentin Grimes is a guy who shot 39% from 3 his first 2 seasons in the league while being a plus defender, and then he was hurt last year. Like, I think he may close games in the playoffs for them. Haven't given up on Grimes by any stretch. So I just think that the Mavs they have more versatility now. There's more lineups they can get to. Derek Lively was a rookie. He's going to be better. And I think that I would have them and OKC as the clear top 2 teams in the West. And I would have Denver 3rd now because I think Denver's really now dependent on like Julian Strawther and Peyton Watson and Christian Brown. And like maybe one of those guys pops, probably Strawther, but I don't feel great about their situation at all now.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And I guess the only pushback I'll give you on the Mavs is Doncic finished this season hot. He was, and that could have something to do with the way that they built the team, right? It could have been just like, oh, we got the pieces, they all fit now. And he has carried that through now to international basketball, and he's going to play qualifying. He's playing qualifying for Slovenia now. He's going to play the Olympics, presumably, and then heading into next season. And, that this has happened once before in recent memory, and it impacted his performance in the regular season significantly. So I'm kind of a little buyer beware that the trajectory and the improvement you saw from Doncic, particularly into the close of this last season, is going to be just continued either plateau at that level or continue to ascend. Considering there are, now he's, there's tape now, man. You want to make Doncic work a little bit harder in the, in terms of putting him in tough spots defensively. Well, there's more opportunity to do that in the regular season this year. And I don't know that I'm at the point now where I trust him that he's, coming into a season in peak physical form to be able to handle the 82 games and not have the same sort of, fall off in production the way we saw in the, 2022-23 campaign. So, I'm a little bit like just a teeny weeny bit skeptical that Doncic is going to be as good as the guy that we remember from, March to June.
Yeah, potentially. And he is something of an injury risk because I don't think he's in the best condition. But there is one sneaky thing, or a positive of betting on the Mavs, is that you always get to ride the upside, that this could be the year that Doncic comes in shape. Like he may just magically get in shape, like Jokic just magically got way thinner. And if that's the year that the light bulb goes off and Luka didn't get embarrassed in the finals. He was fine, but it wasn't a great showing from him, and his defense got exposed. So I don't know, maybe he has a Jesus on the road to Damascus moment and decides to hit the treadmill a little bit more, so he's not carrying as much weight on his knees and can actually give a bit more effort on defense. But I don't know. We'll see. But that is some upside that's baked in. I think as well, just with Klay, and I think most people dislike the move. I just think like you've upgraded your talent and you've created more versatility without really much of an asset cost. They gave up a 2nd round pick. They lost Josh Green. I don't think is any good. And with Klay, and this is a little bit flawed and there's a little bit more going on here, but there is an element where, his deficiency as an on-ball defender and guys blowing by him, I think it's a little bit minimized if you're playing with Luka Doncic in a playoff series. Like, what are people going to be like going to cook Klay Thompson off the dribble every single play? Like, no, they're going to get after Luka anyway. And defense is kind of, it's about funneling the guy to the rim, where you have one of your two elite rim protectors. It's not quite that simple because, off-ball defense matters. They lose Derek Jones Jr.'s activity and all that. But I don't know. I think Klay is going to be good for them, net positive, even if it is a little bit of a messy fit next to Irving and Luka on defense. On offense, they're going to be incredible. Like, I think there's a good chance to be the best.
Key question for you about Klay. When it first was rumored, I was like, oh, yeah, nice. Because the big thing that the glaring issue in the finals for the Mavericks was, besides Doncic's defense, the big glaring thing was they couldn't even get up threes at the same rate as the Celtics were, not even close. And so I was like, oh, they got a guy who can get up threes. Like, holy smokes! Like, Klay is still prolific at getting up the three. And he is a good enough shooter that it's not like a negative at this point. So nice. Like, but at the same time, like, I don't know that it's 100% personnel that was driving that problem as much as it was just sort of their style of play and really just the way Luka wants to play offense in particular. So, in theory, that's like an immediate upgrade in a department that really hurt them. But again, like, I kind of, I guess I need to see it, proof of concept, because I remember when they made the moves at the trade deadline and you looked at all the pieces and you were like, wow, Mavericks might have figured this out. And they're kind of rearranging things in ways that I'm a little less enthusiastic about, I guess.
Yep. I mean, we'll see. There's elements of the team that definitely aren't perfect, but my play right now would be, I would back OKC at plus 400 to win the West. I would back Dallas at plus 500 because I think there is more than a 36% chance that one of those two teams is going to be in the finals, particularly when you look at like Denver are so flawed and it's lacking in depth. And also, like, what happens now if like one of their top four guys gets hurt? Like, you saw what happened last season when one of the top five guys got hurt, and now KCP is gone. And then Minnesota, I just don't really like the Wolves. They don't like their offense. They need Ant to jump from like a plus 4.5 guy to a plus 7 type of guy, or plus 6.5 guy, which he may be able to do, but they have some constraints with just the rigidity of their roster and playing so big, and Gobert's limitations on offense and so forth. And then after that, like, I think the fifth best team in the West is Memphis, who I don't mind at 20-1 to win the West. But yeah, I think OKC and Dallas are a class above. But plenty of time to talk about those teams. Let's pivot.
Can I twist your arm on one absurd long shot?
The Pelicans?
Nope.
The San Antonio Spurs?
I like the Spurs, but I think I like them more as just to make the playoffs bet than I do as a future, because who the heck knows. But I'm kind of intrigued by the pieces that exist now for the Houston Rockets, and I do believe in Ime as like a coach who showed us pretty clearly like he was figuring out the pieces that he had to work with at the end of the season last year. And I'm just intrigued with what they can do with some of the strengths that they have across that unit now, and they're like weirdly deep, which is a little surprising. And I think the Northwest, as far as divisions, is all of a sudden like full of problems in terms of how do you kind of distinguish yourself. There's the Jazz and the Blazers, I think, are going to be a little bit better this year. On top of you have a problem with the Thunder being even better. The Pacific looks weak to me, and the Southwest looks, somebody's going to take a step forward. If you think it's the Grizzlies, that's an interesting call. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the Rockets, who finished 500 last year, even having some serious injury issues, and look like they have a bunch of players on the ascend. So,
yep. No, I think the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, and the Mavs, it seems improbable that one of them isn't going to win like 50 plus games, obviously. And so that's the threshold I think that Houston have to get to. I think to win the division, Houston need to make a trade, but they're a very good chance to make a trade. So I don't think in terms of like winning the West, it's very hard for me to see like Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün headed to the finals next year. But I think a regular season, they'll be an interesting team. I'll be interested to see what Ime Udoka's Coach of the Year odds are, because they seem like a team that is primed to, leap from, they weren't even in the play-in. Like, it wouldn't be shocking at all if they, made a trade and then all of a sudden they're a 4 seed, which is probably what Ime would need to win that award. But yeah, they're an interesting team, and they closed the season. They got materially better, and they did it without Şengün, who was, arguably their best player for stretches. So they are an interesting team to monitor.
You think the trade would include Kevin Durant potentially?
I just don't understand, like, what is Mike Budenholzer just signed up to oversee, like, Devin Booker and Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic? Like, I think they would have to have an injury or submarine themselves to just sell off Kevin Durant and just give up already. But Houston make the most sense on that front, just with the draft picks that they acquired from Brooklyn. Now that they have control of Phoenix's draft, which I think is a very I mean, it makes sense, but yeah, it's like a strange ransom move. Like, we want Kevin Durant, we've got your picks, you're trading him to us. God damn it. So I think that they would be the logical suitor on that front, but yeah, we'll see. That's the type of thing they would need to do, I think, to get into, the low 50s win range. I don't think they quite have the talent at the moment, but they're well coached and they've got interesting pieces. Yeah. All right, let's go to London and talk about Wimbledon. And let's start with the women's side. Iga Swiatek is the joint favorite with Coco Gauff. Obviously no Arina Sabalenka anymore. Elena Rybakina is right there with Gauff and Swiatek. And then you have the surger, Emma Raducanu, we might have spoke about a week ago or so. She is, and there was some 40-1 about Raducanu. She's now into 9-1. And then it hurts to say the name. Ons Jabeur is 12-1. She's next, followed by Pegula and Madison Keys. What's the breakdown of the women's side?
We'll start with Raducanu because she's kind of the name on everyone's tongue. She was amazing today, by the way. She was up against dealing with injury, Elise Mertens, but she just absolutely took care of business, which was impressive to see because she's on center court now. The eyes are on her. Like, the buzz is real. Like, she's had issues with those type of moments, and she just came had no hesitation, showed up, performed well. And I've seen enough from her on grass this cycle to know that she is very live to win the third quarter. The third quarter is phenomenally weak. Like, this is unbelievable, the names who are still left here, particularly as you look at her section of the draw. And I know she's drawn, she's got number ninth seeded Marie Sakkari in the third round here, but I would make her a very decent favorite to beat Sakkari. I've never really rated Sakkari's grass game especially well, and I think Raducanu would be in the -500 range against whoever comes through on the top in the fourth round, which would put her potentially in decent favorite status against pick your poison here, Kasatkina, Badosa, or Vekic, who are all probably the players you would say have enough quality to get give her a match. But kind of looking at the way that things have broken for her, expecting her to win third quarter is very realistic. Now, I haven't seen the quality from her so far that she's going to be able to go any further than that. I'm not just kind of specifically singling out, a poor matchup with Coco Gauff. But if that's who she ultimately has to face in the semifinals, I would have a healthy favorite status for Gauff. But Gauff, who was the initial kind of beneficiary for in the withdrawal of Sabalenka, she's done nothing but play amazing tennis in her 2 rounds so far, but she's done it against competition that's not close to what she will have to go through in these next the fourth round and the quarterfinals in particular in the fourth quarter. You have a resurgent Bianca Andreescu, Jasmine Paolini playing phenomenally well, Madison Keys waiting in the wings potentially. Like, one of those 3 players is going to be her quarterfinal opponent, and it's going to be tough. And that's assuming that she gets by either Diana Schneider or Emma Navarro in the fourth round. Schneider is playing unbelievably well this whole grass cycle. So the bottom is kind of wide open. I still favor Gauff heavily, but there's all of a sudden a lot of women who, have have really put together pretty impressive performances. The top half, which looked stronger, which looked, much, going to be much tougher. That I feel less strongly about that now. Iga has a pretty comfortable path, to me at least, until the fourth round, where she'll draw an Ostapenko, who played a very focused and sharp match in her first round on grass and is a former semifinalist here, and in general a bully that can beat Iga. Has me kind of happy to take on Iga at current price, and then the second quarter is again full of women who have very high ceilings and also low floors, and so it's kind of anyone's game there. So we came into this thinking there were probably about 10 women with a realistic chance to win, and I would say that 9 of them are still here. So it's a tough call, and if you're going to go price hunting, I think right now at least I'm more inclined to look on the bottom, because it looks like we are headed for a Coco and Raducanu semifinal on the bottom, but the top is still, there are a lot of players who have a decent chance. And again, kind of looking at price specifically, I'm getting pulled back into the Ostapenko orbit. Like, she shouldn't be plus 750 to win quarter one the way that she handles Iga so effectively, and what we saw from her in round one. So Ostapenko might be my runner in the top.
Okay. No, I don't mind it. Ostapenko's high variance as they come. So if you do want to take a long shot, she certainly fits the mold. On the men's side, keen for your thoughts on one man in particular, and his name is Novak Djokovic, who is plus 320 to win Wimbledon despite being on the opposite side of the draw to Sinner and Alcaraz. Does that price cohere with you?
Only because of the draw. If he had, so Sinner in round one played Yannick Hanfmann, who's not a pushover. And if Djokovic had played Hanfmann, he might have lost. Sinner right now battling Matteo Berrettini. If Djokovic had played Matteo Berrettini in round 1 or 2, probably would have lost. And he was afforded a really soft landing here. I'm not saying that there was any funny business, but drawing a qualifier who was completely lost in round 1, and then this wild card opponent, Jacob Fearnley, in round 2. I mean, I could not ask for a better opportunity to kind of figure your game out before you really have to go up against meaningful competition. And honestly, his round 3 opponent, Echeverry or Poprin, not going to really be much of a test. His round 4 opponent, Holger Rune, that could be a little bit interesting, but Rune shrinking in the moment would also not surprise me. So I think it's set up very well here for Djokovic to get into week 2, and at that point, he's liable to either have sustained enough re-injury that he's not a threat at all, or he's all of a sudden your tournament favorite, because Sinner's path is tough. He is likely to make it out of this Berrettini match, but it's close, man. There's been some very, very fine margins in this one, and Alcaraz, for me, I think is the only clear and obvious bet against. He has moments in every match where he just makes it look easy. But the kind of ability to sustain the super high level, which we saw from him pretty consistently in last year's tournament run, hasn't been there yet. So I wouldn't really talk anyone out of taking a shot on Djokovic at price, just because any kind of chaos on the top half helps him, and he's only going to have to play one of Alcaraz and Sinner, if that at all. And so I think that's kind of why the price is what it is, and I don't think there's necessarily a roar to be had. That said, man, what a gift he got in terms of opponents early in this tournament.
Yeah, indeed. Does he look healthy to you?
No.
Okay.
But that might not matter. He wasn't healthy against Musetti on clay, and he got him. He wasn't healthy against Cerundolo on clay, and he got him. He has a mental advantage over all of these players, and I think even though he has an especially kind of preternatural balance about him on grass that most of the other players, they just look kind of lost. Their movement's not smooth. They don't really exactly know how to get what they want out of a specific shot. He always has known what to do just because of all the experience he has. And I think in general, it hasn't looked as fluid to me in the one match we saw, which wasn't even that long. And so there's pretty clearly he's kind of at least aware, if not specifically trying to tailor his game to avoid re-injury. And while that might not matter in a match where he's a minus 2,500 favorite, it's definitely going to eventually matter. And probably not until the final. So I'm prepared for Djokovic to work his way all the way to the final and then get blanked by Sinner or Alcaraz.
Okay. Yeah. Alcaraz is so weird because he just doesn't look right. And he didn't look right the entire French Open run, even though he won the tournaments. Just like, I cannot buy that he was 100% healthy, or at least 100% confident in his health holding up in that final against Zverev. Like the elbow must have been bothering him. But yeah, it's a weird spot. It feels like Sinner is the best player, but he's going to have to beat two of the three big guns to be able to get it done, you would suspect. All right, tune in and watch the toughest cycling race of the year today through July 21st. The world's top cyclists compete for a chance to wear the yellow jacket in the Tour de France. Stream it on Peacock. All right, speaking of La France, the Euros, which have been riveting. A lot of drama. Turkey, Austria was an absolute banger of a match, where a phenomenal save in the dying moments to preserve a probably undeserved Turkey victory, if we're being clear. They kind of lost their heads the last 30 minutes and they just kind of gutted through it. But that followed a magnificent performance from the Netherlands, who really could have won like 8-1 against Romania and then ended up with a 3-0 victory. And on the other side of the bracket, we have two blockbusters coming up in the quarterfinals: Spain, Germany, and Portugal, France. The other two quarterfinals: England, Switzerland, Netherlands, Turkey. The Netherlands have been just gifted a Celtics type of path to the final, potentially. If their path to the final is Romania, Turkey, Switzerland, very live with how England have looked of late, then that is about as easy as it gets, but they've still got some work to do. To me, the most interesting thing about the Euros and also Copa America, just all these international tournaments, is how rapidly a team's rating can be adjusted based on what they're serving up on the pitch. Like England are plus 115 on the three-way money line against Switzerland. Like if pre-tournament, that would have been minus money. And it's just that England won. They won their round of 16 match, but they looked so poor that they drifted for the tournament after they won, which is completely insane. Like you only need to win 4 knockout games to win the tournament. They won one and they drifted because they looked so horrific. So what's your read on the tournament so far? Do you think there's any bet to be made, be it on the quarterfinals or on the outright?
Couple thoughts. It is fascinating because there was a disconnect entirely with the price for England pre-Slovakia match, right? And their outright price and the way you math the money lines, because in worse, even in it was pretty clear that it was unlikely that they were really going to have to face someone especially challenging in the on the rounds to the final, and it's still you couldn't square 4-1, 5-1, whatever best price you available was. And oh, by the way, if you liked England at 5-1, why bet them to win the cup when you could have just waited and bet them at 10-1 to win the match in the round of 16 in the in-running market, which was amazing that they pulled that out. But the England is obviously like they have the talent, and if they ever play to their talent, then their team rating is going to be adjusted rapidly to the good. Right? Like they are very volatile right now in the way that the market will treat them. And if they come out and they play, a little bit carefree, and like we saw from minute 90 plus 8 to the end of the match against Switzerland, then yeah, maybe England does have a realistic chance to win this thing. But I certainly haven't seen it to this point in the tournament. And, I agree with the market 100% that the Netherlands is the most likely team to make the final out of all of these teams, even though they are probably the 6th best. And I think looking at specifically the 6th most talented, I should say. But their quarterfinal match is significantly softer than the other 3. And so therefore there's just imbalance in terms of path to get to the the finish line here. The top half, I mean, I know what I'm going to be doing Friday. Be watching a lot of soccer, back to back, just absolute must watch games here between Spain and Germany, and then Portugal, France. I'm more excited for Spain, Germany, obviously, because Spain has been the most spectacular quality team that we have seen so far. But you're now taking on a team with meaningful home field advantage, who, at least is kind of, is the toughest opponent you will have faced by far, maybe by margin. Right, like it turns out Italy and Croatia not as good as we thought. It turns out that your round of 16 matchup against Georgia was not really a test. So Spain finally gets tested, and they're tested against a team that has home field advantage. So that one, to me, I'm inclined to go against Spain, just at price, because I think it's pretty freaking close in terms of who's likely to advance there, once you factor in home pitch advantage. And if it gets into the extra time or penalty kicks, then I don't see Germany getting there personally. The depth on Spain is too outstanding, and their goalkeeping, particularly in PK situations, is much better than Germany's. So I think if you're playing Germany in this one, which I'm again inclined to do, I'm more interested in taking them plus 175 to get it done in regulation than I am taking them to advance at around pick-em-ish price. So that's the only kind of weak take I have in the games in terms of single game markets for the quarterfinals. But in the outright long term here, I'm the most impressed so far with the French defense personally. And I think that unit as a whole is, there's no figuring things out for them. Like, they are just legit good, period. And they have, a very decent advantage over Portugal in terms of, getting the, getting through, as far as I could tell you, to a semifinal. And then Germany, France, I think would be just another absolute banger of a game. So I think France is a little light to win personally. Still, I think I would flip their price with Spain and have them closer to the threes. But again, ultimately, like, no interest in England at price. I get why it is what it is, but I disagree with it. And I think, expecting Netherlands to get there against whoever comes through this gauntlet on the top half is the world we live in right now. And if I had to take one for my lungs, it would be France.
Yeah, I think this is probably the fourth major tournament in a row where France have just had the most talented team. And I don't think anyone really likes Didier Deschamps and the way that he plays. He's extremely conservative. They're a very defensive team, but I mean, they won the World Cup, and they were, inches away from winning a second World Cup in Qatar. So it's hard to say that it doesn't really work, because it has. And I think that, I think they are the best team, just because, like, Spain have played the best football so far this tournament, I think. And I think that their pace is going to give Germany some issues. But I think still, like, you kind of have to regress to still pre-tournament expectations a little bit, where Germany were significantly shorter than Spain to win the tournament. Well, not significantly, but they were shorter than Spain to win the tournament. And I wonder a bit about how maybe Italy were just atrocious, and that's informing a lot of Spain's rating uptick, because they dominated Italy so thoroughly. To me, the most interesting thing is just whether what happened against Slovakia has caused Gareth Southgate to come to God, because they have maybe, along with France, the most talented squad, England. And just every film room guy on Twitter will tell you that Phil Foden just doesn't work in this team, in this structure. Like, just there's too much redundancy with the way that he's being used. It just doesn't fit with Bellingham, Saka, and Harry Kane. And whether they need to play like with two strikers and bring in Tony, or whether the Cole Palmer needs to play, like, they need to do something different. And as soon as Foden went out, as soon as they sent him to the bench against Slovakia, they scored twice, like, immediately. So I'm just wondering whether Southgate is going to feel forced to do something because he felt the blade against Slovakia, and he could see that he was about to get sacked. Basically, if Bellingham doesn't score with 80 seconds left or whatever it was. And so whether that will trigger some change and whether it will just all suddenly click for England with the tactical adjustments, which I think that it could well do because they just have so much talent, and you still have to regress to the talent in a way for England that I think you have to do in a way that you don't for Portugal, because I think Portugal are just screwed. Like, I just think that they have a bad manager. They're so tied to Ronaldo playing up front. Like, I just don't think that they're going to be able to pull the levers in a way that England potentially can. But the bet for me right now would be the Netherlands at plus 200 to reach the final. That implies that they're going to be plus 136 or so to advance in the semi. Like, how does that make sense? Like, Switzerland are plus 135 against England. The Netherlands are better than Switzerland and rated more highly. And if the Netherlands play, so that's if the Netherlands play England, whose rating will go up if they beat Switzerland, but still. And then the Netherlands, if they play Switzerland, the Netherlands will be favorites. So, like, how is it plus 200 the price? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So, not like a massive reward, but I just think that's a slightly wrong price.
You want to know what else is the wrong price? Cody Gakpo, player of the tournament.
What is his price?
11-1.
Yeah, so he should just be he should just be he should.
He's been their best player.
Price to win the.
Wait, here's the funny thing. He's been their best player by just almost every metric and rating system that I've seen out there. And he happens to also be scoring goals. So it's like he's going to get the dumb vote and the smart vote if Netherlands win. And Netherlands was plus 600. So, like, what? Dude, I honestly, I mean, is there someone I'm forgetting about on the Netherlands who could steal this with a strong 3 games?
No, and someone I'm very deep on the Netherlands I'm deep on the Netherlands to win this tournament. I've been watching all their matches, and he is so far and away the best player on the team. He is like, I don't want to compare him to Messi, but it's a similar thing where it's like when you watch Messi at the last World Cup. It's like, all right, well, he's the talisman. Everything runs through him. Gakpo is a class above everyone else on this team. I don't understand how he's playing so well, given that he had such an underwhelming season at Liverpool, but international football is different. And he's just playing with a clarity and a speed and a level of class that he just looks like he is just gliding on the field. And he is magnificent against Romania, and the reason that they won effectively. And he is having such a tournament that it is in play that he could win this award even if they didn't win the tournament, if they have a decent showing in the final. Like, if they play, say, Portugal in the final, who don't really have a standout player at the moment, and Ronaldo continues to not do anything or whatever. Like, I think
Diogo Costas.
True. Yeah. I don't think there's any Golden Glove award for this.
No.
Thank God. After I took an absolute bath on that market at the World Cup,
Same.
after Emi Martinez, when Emi Martinez did his famous gesture, which I will not vocalize or replicate, I felt like he was doing it directly to me and my wallet because I had everyone in that market except for him, and he won. So good.
Yeah, well, Donnarumma won player of the tournament last Euros, correct? And like, the other thing that's interesting too is that the market right now is still tilted heavily in favor of Mbappe. Okay. I mean, if France win, it's probably because he does explode between now and the end. But that's a leap. It feels like to me. Similarly, Germany has been a team effort. Spain has been a team effort. I'm not exactly sure who Spain's best player has been between Fabian Ruiz and Nico Williams. Nico Williams, by the way, probably your young player of the tournament, has kind of locked that up, would be my guess. Although Musiala for Germany, if Germany makes the final, maybe it flips to Musiala. But it's to me at least the guy that does stand clearly above the rest of his team in terms of quality is Gakpo, and the fact that they have such a favorable path to the final, it's just like that shouldn't be 11-1.
Yep. No, I agree with you there. We'll talk about the semis on our next episode with Brad Thomas to help us on that front. But let's jump to the Copa America, which has been not as compelling of a watch, I would say. I think it's quite the level of play with the Euros. Just quick side note, the controversial allegedly offsides Uruguay goal, like the guy's foot is out in front and in line. Like also, this is like, it's not the thing that they screw up. Like the VAR might screw up if there's like a contentious foul in the build-up. Like it's fairly objective with the drawing of the lines, and the commentators saying like, "Oh, that's not a straight line." Like what? Whose interest is it for Uruguay for like the US to get knocked out of the tournament? Like it's on US soil. Like you would think that the conspiracy would be to help the US progress. Anyway, I was baffled by people being so upset about that offsides. Firstly, to me, it looked like he was onside because of the foot. And anyway, they didn't deserve to win, and it wouldn't have mattered in the end anyway, even if it had been 0-0. Sure. But the US are out. The favorite to win the tournament is Argentina at +125, Brazil +33, who have not covered themselves in glory, and then you have Colombia and Uruguay next up at +550. The us ends, I think, your realistic list of candidates. So, if Ecuador shock Argentina, then they would get live on that side of the draw. But do you have any bets in the quarterfinals or on the outright?
I make Argentina -150 to win.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I'm nowhere close to plus money on them. I mean, their half of the bracket is like phenomenally weaker.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that they're the best team. So I don't really know what else to say, except I'm kind of confused as to why there's not more activity in this market on Argentina. If you can find a plus, what are we showing? +125. Yeah. If you can find +1 plus anything, I think that makes a fun stake. It'll make the tournament more interesting for you. Brazil has been not just like they haven't covered themselves in glory. Like they just might be one of the worst Brazil teams that has come through international competition in a while. Like there are so many things that they do not have figured out, and they're kind of out of time because they draw an informed team here in the quarters final, followed by potentially Colombia, who looked clearly better than them last time out. So my guess is that it's going to be Argentina 2-1, 2-0 over Colombia in the final, and I don't think realistically the futures market is caught up, even though the limits 50 to win 50 per click right now in this futures pool.
Yeah, it's not bad. I will say, like, this is another one where the team rating being adjusted is really interesting, because Brazil on the three-way money line closed minus money against Colombia. Now, like anyone who's watched the tournament, where you just say, "Oh, Colombia's just played better," and they also, like, throughout the whole tournament, and then also in the Brazil match, like they cooked Brazil. They destroyed them on XG. They doubled their shots on goal and shot attempts. Possession was split. And so, like, I'd just be interested to see what the price would be if they were to meet up in the semi, because I don't think that Brazil would be minus money on the three-way money line. So Colombia are compelling in that sense. Also, Colombia haven't lost in 26 matches. Like
they're playing really well.
Yeah, and I get it, because like you have to regress to the overall team talent, and guys like James Rodriguez, who apparently can only play well for Colombia, has just not played well at a club level really ever in his entire career. But set the 2014 World Cup, I think, alight, and now 10 years later is a key part of this Colombian side again. So they are compelling. The issue is they're just on the brutal side of the draw, though. To be fair, like they should walk it in against Panama, and so then you only get one really tough matchup, but it's going to be difficult for them to beat two of Brazil, Uruguay, and then Argentina. But at price, I mean, there's still some +650 about Colombia, which I think is a little bit too big when you factor in that, some spots they're -900 to advance against Panama. Like, I'm not sure you're getting to +650 there. But yeah, that makes sense on Argentina.
Yeah, it is crazy that James Rodriguez has been by my numbers, the second best player in this tournament. Wow, I did not see that coming. First, obviously second to Messi to this point. The best Brazilian players that I've got rated here, 28th Lucas Paqueta, and 30th Vinicius Jr. So they have a long way to go to make up the gap between them and the rest of the best of South America right now. So yeah, I mean, I would make Brazil fourth likeliest to win after Argentina, big gap, Colombia, Uruguay, and then Brazil.
Okay. That makes sense. All right, before we get to the NFC West, NASCAR hits the streets of Chicago as the race to the playoffs heats up this summer. Don't miss the drama and excitement in the Windy City this Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. All right, NFC West. Let's start off with the 49ers. We can race through these. Do you think there is any way to bet this team, which is plus 650 to win the Super Bowl? Over under is 11.5. They're minus 450 to make the playoffs, and they have a range of players up for a number of awards.
Yeah, this is tough to say out loud. I'm against the Niners at price.
Okay, why?
They have an absolutely brutal schedule.
Yep,
absolutely brutal. There are specific stretches here where they are playing the likes of the Bills and the Chiefs and some of the better teams in their own conference at a huge rest disadvantage in the time of the season where you're dealing with injuries and you're really trying to kind of find you're trying to set yourself up for a playoff run, and it to me looks like trouble for this team. And the cracks were pretty clearly present in the Niners defense last year, and now that unit looks to have taken a step backwards from what I can tell looking at the player level ratings, on top of the fact that the aging curve is kind of looming for a lot of these guys. So if there's surprises in terms of injury and just if this all of a sudden turns into Bosa and Warner and 9 other guys, like the defense looks susceptible to me, particularly against a schedule that has a ton of elite quarterbacks. Like they're playing a lot of good quarterbacks all of a sudden. So under for me and wins is kind of the angle of attack here, and or taking them on in the futures market in the NFC, because I don't think the path goes through San Francisco this year in the NFC, where the market seems pretty convinced it will. This is in no way taking a shot at Kyle Shanahan, who still is the best offensive coach in the NFL by a margin, in my opinion. It's not taking a shot at Brock Purdy and calling for him to have any type of meaningful regression. But the swirling, we may trade one of our 2 top targets. Don't love the aging and the replacement players they have now on the offensive line. Looks a little dangerous, a little tenuous to me. Using your first round draft capital on Ricky Pearsall was a little bit of a tough thing to swallow, considering where there are some other clear and obvious weaknesses on this team. Right starting tackle is Colton McKivitz. There's just a lot of areas that the roster does not look like Hall of Famer anymore. And I think the market is still treating them that way.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I can see the downside just with the aging, with Purdy, for someone who put up his stats last year, does have a bit more downside than your average quarterback who's coming off a year leading the league in EPA per play and having the best statistical season of any quarterback. So I get that. I get the wide receiver situation. So I think that all makes sense. I think the thing with the Niners is that obviously they still have a ton of upside. They could just stay healthy. We could get a full season out of Trent Williams and more health out of Debo, and McCaffrey has been healthier the past couple of years relative to his earlier career. So if I were to bet the bullish case on the Niners, I think the best way to do that, and this is just a bet I think I'm just going to place every year until eternity, until it either wins or he retires. But Kyle Shanahan can't be 50-1 to win Coach of the Year.
Mm.
Like the team is on circa, they are plus 210 to win 13 plus games. And so what is Shanahan's Coach of the Year? Like how many wins would he need? It might be 15. but they're shorter than 50 to 1 to get to 15 wins. And if they're going to get to 15 wins with Brock Purdy, who no one wanted to vote for MVP last year, who will have an uphill case again this year, though I think that he is like, there's still some 20 to 1 about Purdy when he's probably the favorite to have the best statistical case again, which is a little bit rich, I think. But Shanahan, I just think that everyone thinks he's the best coach in the league. No one thinks that he has a top 5 quarterback, and they are a good chance to lead the league in wins. Like, I just don't think he can be 50 to 1. At one point, it's all going to coalesce behind him, and everyone is going to be like, all right, he's the best coach. This team is the story of the season. They're dominant again. We're giving it to Kyle Shanahan. So, look, I don't think he's the favorite or anything, but I just think 50 to 1. I think there's more than a 2% chance that Kyle Shanahan is coach of the year.
I think he's, the facts are he is a top 5 coach, and he's never gotten the award. And in general, it looks wrong, and he hasn't gotten the Super Bowl and the acclaim in that department as well. So, I mean, it's opportunities there for me. Again, like the idea of them meeting expectations this year is going to be tough. And it comes down to schedule more than anything else for me, which is to say they are up against the NFC North. They're up against the AFC East. They have to play the Chiefs, and they're at a disadvantage against almost all of the good teams they play, including the Cowboys. They have to play the Cowboys off a bye. They have to play the Bills off a bye in Buffalo late in the season. Like this, to me, if I did not know better, there was somebody in the league office putting together the schedule that says we're going to really test the Niners this year. Like, it's not going to be as easy for them. And this is a team that won 12 games last year and skated to a 1 seed in a really, really off year for the NFC broadly. And I think this year, all of a sudden, their division is tougher with a healthy Kyler Murray and a more talented Arizona team, a Rams team that even in the absence of Aaron Donald is still live to give you a test offensively. And then I think their defense has taken a meaningful step backwards. So, I think if there's a bear case for the Niners and Shanahan's coach of the year candidacy, it's that people look at what they do and they are not impressed. And that said, I worry for your mental health if they do win 13 or 14 games and people don't give them the credit for doing that in the face of this schedule. That's going to stink.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see your point on like their median outcome, and like even if they go 13-4, like he's not going to win Coach of the Year at 13-4. Like I think he needs to get to 15 wins. But in terms of just tails of the season, like they have an immense amount of talent. They can just ride some health luck and ride a little bit of luck to get to 15 wins. And then I think that he would be pretty firmly in the mix at that point. You mentioned the Bills, by the way. We won't talk about it now, but I'm very high on Buffalo this season. I bet on them at 20 to 1 to win the Super Bowl last week, which I think is too big. But anyway, we'll talk about them when we talk about the AFC East. Let's stay in the West. The Rams are 14 to 1 to win the NFC. Their over-under is 8.5, though heavily juiced to the over, so projected for basically 9 and 8. They're close to a coin flip to make the playoffs. Matthew Stafford, who is getting some kind of like late fake, like Jalen Williams Rookie of the Year type of MVP buzz towards the end, and he's 20 to 1 this year. Kyron Williams, 22 to 1 offensive player of the year, which there are bigger prices out there on Kyron, which I think is somewhat interesting, given that he will be in the mix to win the rushing title if he stays healthy. Any way to bet the Rams for you?
So if I'm taking a shot, it's almost certainly backing the running game, which was pretty clearly at the end of last season one of the most, if not the most dynamic in football. And now they come into this year even more stacked and deeper in terms of run blocking talent on the offensive line, combined with second year, a more clear and obvious, we know who our guy is, and Kyron Williams is their featured back. So Kyron Williams has the upside to win offensive player of the year, in my opinion. I think in general, if the Rams do anything in terms of making a playoff push, then it's going to come at the behest of their offense being outstanding, because they still have the same problems they had on defense last year, which was, a bunch of guys that are still in their development stages. Except for this year, now you're going to need a guy like Kobe Turner, to take on the role of an Aaron Donald instead of benefit from Aaron Donald being alongside of him. And I don't know that I fully buy that can happen this quickly for a lot of these young players, on top of the fact that you have a new defensive coordinator in Chris Shula. And just in general, like your schedule, I can say a lot of the same stuff that I said about the Niners. You're playing a ton of elite quarterbacks, and now you have a defense that's going to be truly tested. And I think that could ultimately throw a little bit of cold water on the Rams, in terms of their playoff hopes, and certainly in terms of, just how they are winning football games is going to have to come with points. So, I would keep an eye on Kyren Williams, 22-1 offensive player of the year, as far as the upside for the Rams. And then as far as the downside goes, you got a pretty lucky, healthy year out of Matt Stafford last year, when we know he's been dealing with some non-trivial injuries and he's at the tail end of his career here. And there's been a lot of people kind of breaking down the film from last year and kind of really re-elevating Stafford into the upper echelons of quarterback rankings for fair reason. But I'm still going to have a long tail negative for this offense overall because of the potential that he gets injured. And then all of a sudden, this is I guess it's the Stetson Bennett show. Is that really who they're going with as their QB2 this year? I don't know. Could be the dress or win show, at which point the Rams are in rebuild mode. So, Stafford and his health are kind of the key questions for me.
Yep. No, I agree with that. I think that, Kyren I don't think he's really a bet at current price, but I think he is a guy to monitor because when he was fit and they gave him the keys, he played at an offensive player of the year type of level. But I just worry that with Blake Corum there, with Kyren, just his kind of frame, he just doesn't look like a guy who's just going to be able to have 280 carries and survive a season. But here's one to monitor. Let's jump to the Seahawks, whose win total is 7.5. Juiced over, they're plus 200 to make the playoffs. They're kind of the definitional 500 type of team. It doesn't feel like they have a lot of upside. Doesn't feel like they have a ton of downside either. Mike McDonald, new coach he's 20-1 to win coach of the year. My question to you is, what scope do you think there is for Geno Smith to get benched at some point for presumably Sam Howell? Or do you think that Geno has a relatively tight grip on that job?
Oh, no. Do not think he has a tight grip on that job at all. I think that he has a relatively short leash, and the reasons aren't even that complicated. There's no there's no skin in the game for Mike McDonald at this point to keep Geno Smith around, right? And at some point, if you're not getting what you expect to get out of your offense, I would think that kicking the tires on Sam Howell is entirely in the cards. And I guess when I look at the way that this roster is built, the weakness is the quarterback, period. Like, they have a decent they have a decent set of skills, skill position players, solid 2 tackles who, by the way, were hurt for a lot of last year. And it's kind of thrown people off the scent of them having a maybe an okay, if not a good offensive line. And then the defense, I'm expecting just bringing in Mike McDonald and some of the kind of core philosophy that you saw in what the Ravens did last year with the talent that they have, overall in that locker room. They should take a huge step forward defensively. And so I can see very clearly a situation where 4 to 5 weeks into the season, if they have a 1-4 record, maybe even a 2-3 record, but Geno Smith in particular is not performing well, that could be a call for a changing of the guard here. And again, because you happen to have 2 elite tackles in Cross and Lucas, Howell's issue was holding onto the ball too long and getting sacked. And so, it doesn't sound crazy to talk yourself into, maybe we have something here. Let's try it. And if it doesn't work, then we've set ourselves up to draft a quarterback next year anyway. So, I would say that the over under for me in terms of games Geno Smith starts for the Seahawks this year would be about 8.5.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. He's had a weird couple of years where I think a lot of it is inflation based on how incredible he was that first 5-week stretch when he won Comeback Player of the Year in 2022. But it does feel like the organization has never really committed to him as the guy, which I think makes sense given that, he's not a top 8 quarterback. Do you think there's any way to bet this team at the moment?
I think that the defense was so poor, particularly at the back half of last year, that the market is going to be underrating the defense the early part of the season. And again, with the question marks for me at the quarterback position, and in general, maybe even leaning into a run heavier approach, because you do have, again, a good potential for a good offensive line and, depth at the running back position. Then, yeah, I think you could get shorter games. You could see some lower scores. And this is a team that we, pretty consistently saw, high totals last year. And, if that carries into the first quarter of the season, then I might be on a handful of Seahawks unders.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's close out with the Cardinals, who are 40-1 to win the NFC. I don't think they'll be doing that, but the win total is 6.5. It's -160 to the over. So immediately when I see something like that, a team that's, was 4 wins last year, immediately off the bat, projected for 7 wins. I think about Coach of the Year stuff, and Jonathan Gannon is 16-1, and his baseline is immediately improving by 3 wins. Now, what would he actually have to do to win the award? Probably have to go minimum 11-6, which I think is vaguely conceivable, albeit pretty unlikely. So I haven't bet any Gannon, but I think he is one of the he's one of the more likely guys in the league to win, just off of the baseline, the low baseline that he's got and the massive wins improvement he can have. Kyler Murray is 50-1 to win MVP. He is 30-1 to win Comeback Player of the Year, which is a bit of a weird one because he already kind of came back last year. So he had the injury 2 years ago. So I don't think that he's really going to be seen in that vein, though maybe he kind of just creates a higher bar for him. But what do you think of the Cardinals broadly, and any way to bet them?
Well, I mean, they have to upgrade them overall from what you saw last year, because this probably not going to have any Clayton Tune games. One would guess. If things go sideways or if Murray gets hurt, Desmond Ridder seems like a more capable backup than what they had going on last year. That said, this team has a 6.5 win total currently, and it's been the hottest ticket in town for some reason. People are just generally expecting that the Cardinals are just going to be better. And quarterback play should be better, but there are still a ton of massive holes on this team. Right now, you're expecting Marvin Harrison Jr. to step in immediately and be a wide receiver 1 and carry a healthy amount of the offensive load in terms of pass catching and playmaking and explosive playmaking, because they don't really have much else going. And I think the defensive side of the ball, there are question marks and issues at all 3 levels. And while Jonathan Gannon is a defensive guy and kind of got more out of the defense last year than I thought they were going to get, there are still massive issues there. And so, I noted how enthusiastic the betting market was for this team and their win total over, and then studied their schedule a bit on the preparation for this podcast. And I'm not seeing 7 wins on here. I'm not exactly sure what kind of upgrade you're giving to which unit to get them into contention where they're, threatening the likes of the Rams for wins in the regular season, where they're beating anyone on their schedule outside of the likes of the Patriots, the Commanders, and I mean, those are their only 2 easy, obvious wins. Let's say you split with the Seahawks. Let's say the Panthers don't take any step forward. You still have to beat them on the road. The Vikings, if they stumble out of the gate this year and they're starting a rookie quarterback December 1st, you still have to beat them on the road. And then all of your home games, you have legitimate quarterbacks coming to town outside of the Commanders, and who knows, maybe Jaden Daniels has something special by the time we get to week 4. So this looks like a team that's going to get feasted on, from what I can tell you, because of the defensive talent issues. And for those reasons, they're going to have a tough time stacking wins. And I think I'm going to let the market continue to kind of heat up on these guys and then try to scoop an alt under on them before we get to the close.
Yeah, I think the thing with the Cardinals is like, what position group do they have that's like materially above average? Like safety, like running back with James Conner, like Trey McBride at tight
You
end.
know who their strong safety is?
It's Jalen Thompson.
Jalen Thompson. You
Yeah.
know, is
Undrafted, was he? Yeah.
if he's above average, that's news to me.
Oh, Buda Baker is
Buda Baker's incredible. Sure, yeah, he's incredible.
Carrying that group, but the thing with the Cardinals, like if you want to bet on them to be good, and I don't really want to do that, but if you did, like here's how they start the season: at Buffalo, home Rams, home Detroit, home Washington, at San Francisco, at Green Bay, home Chargers, at Miami. And then it's like Chicago and the Jets after that. Like it's not easy. It is a bit of a softer ending where you play Seattle twice, Minnesota, New England, Carolina. That's a much easier stretch, but it is a brutal first 10 weeks for them. So if you're looking at anything like Kyler Murray related or Gannon, like I would just wait until. Like it's very unlikely to me that they're going to be like 6-4, 7-3 through 10 games or anything that would need them to win awards or maybe there'll be a chance to make playoffs price on them after they start potentially 4-6, 3-7. You're probably cooked anyway, but that is a really tough start to the season, and then it will get easier after that. So maybe there'll be ways in.
Yeah. What happens when they're 1-9 heading into the bye?
Yeah, then you can't make I don't really see it with the Cardinals. I think that I think Kyler Murray has become underrated, where he is a good quarterback. People forget like Kyler Murray was the MVP favorite at a time, like halfway through the season 3 years ago. I don't think he's an MVP.
No, he was 8-0,
but yeah, he's a good quarterback, and he's finished the season fine and looked like Kyler Murray. And they have youth; they might be fun. But the schedule is so rough those first 10 weeks that it's hard to see them doing too much. All right, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. And a reminder to check out all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you next time.